Today I plan on covering the SiSwingsHighsLows indicator here for you guys. Alright, so you can see I have a bunch of SiSwingsHighLows on my chart here, and I'm just going to kind of go through some different combinations of how to use that to detect when these pivot points or swing points are broken here. Just a sec here. I see a comment coming in. So, alright, so Julie's saying that her SiSwingsHighsLows indicator does not look like mine. Yeah, so I custom set up my plot here. So what I'm going to do, so I'm kind of showing you the final result first, and so I'm going to delete these and to show you how to make the chart here like this. Oop, come on. So let me go into my indicators. Now, typically the SiSwingsHighsLows, and then that's a mouthful, I know, is basically it's a modified version of NinjaTrader's swing indicator. Right, so if I keep scrolling down here, right, we have NinjaTrader's swing indicator. So this is a modified version of that from Dorshand. I believe it, part of that code was like from Dorshan's price action swing indicator, something similar to that one, where he's made the detection of this, pivot points or the swing points a little smarter than NinjaTrader's swing indicator. So NinjaTrader's swing indicator, as we can see here, it has a strength number, and that strength number just refers to how many bars back and how many bars forward is needed for a trend. The length of the trend has to be 5 bars forward and 5 bars back before a swing point can be detected. So like this little pivot right here, right, it's less than 5 bars back to this high pivot, and it's less than 5 bars forward to this pivot. So NinjaTrader would not count this as a swing point here. But this the SiSwingsHighsLows also includes like a GAN, if I understand correctly, it includes a GAN formula which incorporates price movement as well. So not only does it need, so it doesn't rely solely on just the number of bars backwards and the number of bars forward. It also uses price movement as well. So if I add this on here to my chart, you'll notice it has this percent distance as well. So it's using a swing sensitivity and a percent distance as well in its calculation. So it'll pick up some swing points that NinjaTrader's swing indicator might not pick up if there's enough price movement. Right. So with that, all right, so I just threw this one on here without modifying it at all, and since it's a swing indicator, it's going to default onto the price chart here. So let me just hit apply, and we see it dropping on here onto price. Now, what I did is, I modified my plots here to give me, this kind of, I guess to me this is easier to read. So what I did is, you'll see we have the widest bottom and the widest top. So the widest plots I set to a width of 4. So they're the thicker plots. That's the widest plot is the one at the very bottom, and the ones at the very top. So you'll see they're the thicker plots, and they're a lighter color. So it's the lighter blue and the lighter magenta. Now the tightest plots, you'll see this tightest top and tightest bottom is a little thinner, so the width is set to 2. So it's the darker magenta here that's a little thinner, and the darker blue up here. That's a little thinner. Now the tightest plots, these tightest plots here, these are the internal swing points. So you see the widest plots are, like the lowest low and the highest high of the swing points. And the tightest ones would be the internal swing points. Now, to really make it obvious what the difference are is if I adjust the number of swings. So if I look back 6 swing points, now you'll see that the widest plots are now a little longer, and the wider tops up here are a little bit longer. They carry on a little bit longer, and that's because this widest bottom plot is now valid for 6 swings, right? So the indicator is going to count 6 swing points. So it's going to go count up here, and I think this is probably the first swing point, and then down here. So this would be like 1, 2, 3, 4. I think down here is 4, and then this is probably 5, and then down here somewhere would be swing 6, and as soon as it swings out of that, starting to count up to the 7th swing, then that's when this widest bottom plot stops. As soon as the indicator starts counting the 7th swing point, this widest bottom is no longer valid anymore, and then it jumps up to the next lowest swing point, which is then up here. So that's what this number of swings does, is primarily it affects your widest tops and your widest bottom plots. So as we're looking at the widest tops up here, we can see there's so many little micro swing points that this widest tops didn't last very long until it jumped down to this point right here, until this pivot point, and then this pivot point became the widest top or the highest high in this series of swing points. So essentially, just if you find you need this indicator in your system, you definitely need to just kind of play around with the settings until you get the kind of results you want. So, but I'm going to set it to 3. So setting it to 3 essentially is good for detecting just the previous swing point. So if I want to know when price breaks, the previous low point, then setting this, leaving this on its default setting of 3 is the best here. And let's see if I have some examples. So yeah, so right up in here. Oh, can't use my charts well. Shoot, I was hoping to draw a circle around this. All right, so anyways, so we can see that this right here was marked as the widest bottom, or in other words, the lowest swing point within our look back period. And as soon, and so we could use that, the widest here, to detect when price breaks that. Well, let's see. Probably make this, I can't adjust anything on the chart. Well, you can actually see that the widest bottom jumped up here a little bit. So it's now actually up here, so now it's detecting these 2 low points as the previous, lowest low pivot point. And so that's what we would be detecting as being broken. So once again, if adjusting these settings, like adjusting the distance in combination with the swing points, could help you fine-tune how this is going to look, so that way you could eliminate the indicator from detecting these two low points as the previous lowest low and hold on to this low point here. Let's see, so how about if I just try adjusting this to 1.5. Let's see if that makes a difference. Nope. All right, let's try 2. No. And actually, let me put this back to 2, and I'll adjust the swing sensitivity here. So let's knock that up to 5. And there we go. So knocking this up to 5 kind of helped eliminate some of these little minor swing points in here. So now we can see the widest bottom is right there, and it's holding on to this as the lowest pivot point, and then we can detect when price breaks it. And once again, price is moving up, and we can see when price breaks, these low points right here. And so that's what I'm going to show you how to do, is how to detect when price or your indicator breaks, the previous low point or the previous high point. So I'm going to just put these back to the default settings. That way I don't accidentally forget to change these settings within BloodHound. So all right, I see there's a bunch of questions coming up here, so let me just kind of scan through these before I move on to the next step here. Oh, let me ask you, are you guys still seeing a web page? So I got some comments in here that you guys are only seeing a web page for some reason. So let me just double check. Let's see, it shows on projecting monitor 1. So hopefully you guys were seeing my chart that whole time. Okay, great. All right. I noticed when I first turned on GoToMeeting, it was projecting the wrong monitor, and I switched it over. So I guess for some people it didn't switch over for some reason. Okay, well, good. Thanks. I'll just move on then. Okay, so I found out somebody had to log out and log back in order to get my correct screen to show. So if anybody's still having a problem seeing my previous monitor, which had a web page on it, then what worked for other people is to log out and just log back into the room. Okay. So Tony, if you're still having the problem, just log out of the workshop and log back in real quick. All right, good. So with that, see. So before I get into BloodHound, let me show you how to put the price action swing on the MACD here on the chart. So what I'm going to do is go find it again. There it is. Okay, add it down to the bottom of the list. So I'm going to have 2 price action swings on the chart. So the first one here, as you know, it just defaults on the price. And the second one, I'm going to put the second one on the MACD. So in order to put an indicator on another indicator, on top of another indicator, you have to change the input series. So you can see right now the instrument's price data, here, the CL, is what's being fed into the SI swings indicator. And so we're going to change that and feed the MACD in. So I just click on that little button that was over there, and now we have NinjaTrader's input series, and I'm going to open up my indicator list, scroll down to the MACD, and as you know, the MACD has 3 different plots. So if I want to feed a different plot into the SI swings, I can select which plot data I want to feed into my SI swings, but we're just going to leave it on the MACD. And of course, I can adjust my settings here, and interesting, it's not using the default settings, so maybe it's remembering the last time I modified the periods on here. So let me put the periods back to their defaults. Alright, hit OK, and now apply it. And oh, I forgot one more thing. So I need to change the panel that indicator's on. I need to put the indicator on panel 2. Okay, so the price, where price is, that's panel 1, and then so the first indicator panel below price would be panel 2, and then BloodHound here would be on panel 3. So all this up here is panel 1, panel 2, and panel 3. So as you look at the list, right, we have 3 price panels. All right, let me apply that and correct it. There we go. Okay, so now you can see the SI swing high-low is now on the MACD here. All right, and I'll show you guys how to do this again a couple more times on the other chart when we get over there. All right, so now we'll start building some BloodHound solvers here to detect when we're breaking the high and low points here. First, let me give this a name. And so today is the 20th already. Okay, so what I'm going to use to detect when our SI swing indicator is broken is the comparison solver. Here. So add that on here. So I'll call it something like price to swing comparison. And so I'm going to I'm going to work on the price panel first. So we're going to work on detecting price breaking its previous swing points here. So I'm going to switch this over to the closing price. I'll just detect the closing price, and next I need to set indicator B to the SI swing indicator. There it is. Alright, so I can double click, drop it down to the bottom here, or you can use the add new button to drop it down here. And I'm using the default settings here. Now for the plots, what I want to compare it to, so for the tops, so if price is breaking the whitest tops, which are the blue plots, I want a long signal. All right, so that's kind of basically, that's like a breakout long situation here. And then if price breaks the bottoms, you know, which is the magenta plot, then that's kind of a breakout to the short side. So we'll get a, so we're looking for a short signal from the bottoms. And there we go. So we can see, and let me stretch the chart out here, make it a little easier to read. So we can see when the closing price is below our widest bottom, which is right the thicker magenta line, we can see we're getting a short output here. And then price pops up above it for a couple of bars, so there's no signal. And then as soon as price breaks down below it again, we can see we're getting a short output. So I'm just going to shrink this down here temporarily. And then as we move along, all right, now we can see whenever the closing price breaks above the widest tops or the previous high points. And so this was a pretty clear one, easy to see right here. So that's pretty simple. Pretty simple use of this for price action there, like that. So now let me start working on a logic board here. So I'll create a new logic board, and let's see. So I'll drop that existing node right on here, connect it back up. There we go. All right, so just as a quick example, let's say we only wanted one signal when price breaks, right, the previous high point. And let me just drop a signal extender, or oops, signal extender. No, I want a signal blocker. There we go. All right, so I'm going to check my resets here. All right, yeah, so when there's no input, no signal, yeah, I want to leave that on true. And let's see, we're not using the reset input, so I'm going to turn that off. And input opposite signal, yeah, I'll leave that on true. Oops. And I'm just going to bump this up to, let's see, let's try 10. See how 10 works for us. So now we can see in this series here, it just gave us one clean signal. And if I scroll back here, remember we had a whole series of signals coming down, and it appears that 10 was not enough. So let me bump that up to 20. And there we go. So we get the first signal on this breakdown here. Now you can see we got a signal here, but what happened was price moved back up, right? So then there was no short signal, and so with there being no signal, so that's this reset right here. There's no signal, and so it stopped blocking. It stopped blocking the signals as soon as price broke above our pivot line here. So there was no signal, so it reset the signal blocker node, and then when it came back down again, we got another signal. But then you can see it's blocking all the signals all the way to the very end until we get the next break of here. So Now here's a little tip. I've shown you this before, but what I like to do to help me kind of know what the signal blocker is doing is in this blocked output, I like to put 0.1 in there. And so you can see when I put 0.1 in there, I get this, a 0.1 output on the chart. And so that tells me when the signal blocker is actually blocking signals. So I can see here, right, price came down and then price moved back up. And it was blocking for that one bar, but on the next bar it stopped blocking. And that was because there was no signal from our comparison solver, because price moved back up above our pivot line. And so the signal blocker stopped blocking signals until price broke the pivot line again. So, all right. So now, next, let's move on to the MACD. I'll stretch this out here. And let me pause for a moment and look at these comments or questions in here. Let's see. Tony's asking, does he need to download new version? No, Tony, you do not. Not yet. So Jeremy's still close on pushing out that update. He's getting closer every day. Julie is asking, how do you get the signal blocker? So Julie, the signal blocker is under the function nodes here. So I'm working on the logic tab, and then inside the function nodes, right in the middle here is the signal blocker. So click on that and it drops one down. Okay. All right, and Robert is asking, is there a way to block the first signal and accept the second one? Yes, Robert. Yeah. I was thinking about showing something like that, and I just decided, no, I was going to show it maybe towards the end of the workshop, but since you asked it, yeah, let me show you how to do that. Okay, so let me bypass our signal blocker here. So if we want to wait until the second occurrence, oops, let me get my little dot, there we go. So say we want a signal on the second bar in a row, right? So I'm assuming that Robert's saying like he wants to eliminate kind of like these fake outs here, right? So we got kind of 3 fake outs as price was dancing around here. And then over here on this long, we want to wait until the second bar right here is probably what Robert's wanting. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the Lookback node here. So the Lookback node can be used to require 2 signals in a row from any solver. So essentially what we're doing here is we're requiring 2 signals in a row, and so then we'll get a signal on the second one. So, and over here we need 2 signals in a row. Now in this group here, right, in this group right here, we don't have 2 signals in a row. We got 3 signals, but they're not continuous, they're not in a row. So these will just disappear. So I'll connect up our solver to the Lookback. So what I need to change is I need to change the Lookback period. So I'm going to change that to 2. And as soon as I put a higher number than 1 in there, you'll see a third parameter opens up here. And for this, I'm going to set it to the minimum. So the Lookback mode, I'm going to set to minimum here. And when I set it to minimum, And now we can see that these are eliminated, right? And oh, hold on, let me set my displacement to 0. Sorry. So I need to set the displacement to 0. There we go. Because you'll probably notice that the signal appeared after the dots here. And that was because the displacement pushed the signal forward in time by 1 bar. All right, so I can displace the signal. So this lookback has, you know, two different functionalities here. So I can, it has a displacement. So if I set that back to 1, you'll see like over here, our signal was pushed forward by 1. You know, the whole series of signals was pushed forward by 1. And I can push it forward by 2, make it really obvious, right? And you can see the whole series of signals was pushed forward by 2. But we're going to want to set that to 0 and leave our look back on 2. So that eliminated all these little fake out little signals here. And we can see right here as well. The signal started on the second bar that broke that pivot point. All right. So with that demonstration, I see a bunch of questions coming here. So let me pause for a moment again. So Mike is saying, could you quickly show the plots for the SI indicator again? Okay. Take it Mike is wanting to know how I set up my SI swing highs lows. So I'm using the hash. So for the widest bottoms, I'm using the hash, right? So this long rectangle is a hash. It's the hash plot, and I set my widest ones to the 4, to the thickness of 4. And on the tightest ones, I'm also using the hash. So you can actually see here it says hash on all 4 plots, and then you can see the thickness of the plot here. So the tightest are 2 pixels and the widest are 4 pixels. And then, you know, of course, set it to whatever color you like. You know. Let's see. Bob's got a little comedy comment here. Let's see. I'm not sure how to pronounce Linda's last name. Bob's saying Linda Rash. Not sure how to pronounce her last name, but Linda, I'm assuming Linda's a coach, a trading coach or something, says, second mouse to arrive at the trap gets the cheese. I think Bob's commenting on waiting for the second signal here. So that's a good one, Bob. So Adam is asking, what's the dot for? I put the dot here just to mark where the second signal in a row is. So if we just look at just the straight solver, right, we can see that the signal here starts on the first bar that breaks our pivot line, and the question was asked, how do we wait and get a signal on the second bar? So I just like to mark on my chart, you know, where we expect the BloodHound signals to be to start. So I just mark it with the little dot. And the triangles, I use the red triangles to mark where plots or signals that would disappear. So you'll see these red triangles disappear, and once again the dot is representing where we want the short signal to start. So we don't want a short signal on the first bar, we want it on the second bar, so I just marked it with the dot. So it's just a visual aid. So Okay, yeah, so Adam, I'll cover the tightest what the plot differences are again towards the end, at the end of the workshop. Oh, so the proper pronunciation I'm being told is Linda Ratchke. That probably sounds correct. Linda Ratchke. Ratchke or Rashke, something like that. Okay. All right, guys. So let's let me keep moving on here. All right. So now we'll work on the MACD here. So let's see. I'll shrink my chart up a little bit. So I'm going to move these guys out of the way, and I'm going to drop a new comparison solver down. All right, so with this new comparison solver, we're going to be looking at for the MACD swings. All right, so now instead of indicator A being our price, we want indicator A to be our indicator that we're interested in analyzing. So indicator A is going to be our MACD line. Okay, default period settings here. Let's just make sure. Yeah, so my MACD is 1226.9, 1226.9. All right, and we're just going to analyze the MACD plot for both long and shorts. So call that good. And next we need to change indicator B over. Okay, so now, just as I showed you at the beginning of the workshop that I had to nest the MACD indicator into the SI swing high-low indicator, well, we also have to do that type of nesting in BloodHound as well. So let's find the SI swing high-low indicator. All right, I'm going to add that down at the bottom. Now next I need to go find the MACD indicator, and I have to use the nesting button. So I'm going to nest the MACD data into the SI swing indicator just like I did on the chart. We'll have to do the same thing in BloodHound. So I'm going to use the nest button to do that. And there we go. Now you can see the MACD is nested into the swing indicator. Now when you have an indicator with multiple plots, such as the MACD, make sure that you have the correct plot selected. So if I wanted to, I could feed the average data. I could feed the average plot into the SI swing indicator if I wanted to. But we're just using the regular MACD line, so I'll leave it selected up there. And then also, don't forget our main indicator, which is the SI swing. We need to set our plot correct for this. So I'm going to use the tops for a long signal. So when the MACD breaks our whitest tops, I want a long signal. And then when the MACD breaks below our whitest bottoms, I want a short signal. And it was as simple as that. So let me kind of stretch this out, and actually let me get rid of that difference plot. So I'm just going to set this to, or I could make it really, really dark. How about if I make it navy? I'll just turn it off. There we go. So here's our zero line. I'll make that zero line a little more visible. there. Okay, so we can see as soon as the MACD breaks our whitest top plot, right, which is the previous MACD high. So I'm going to scroll all the way over. So here we go. It found this little pivot point right here, back here. So as soon as it broke it, we got our long signals. And this one's a little more obvious. As soon as the MACD breaks its previous pivot high, there we go. Long signals. And let's see. Yeah, so the SI swing detected these little tiny pivot points here. So we got this little pivot point there, and we got this little tiny pivot point here. So once again, you'd have to play around with the SI swing high-low settings if you wanted to eliminate these little minor pivot points right here like this. All right, well, I think, at least I feel that was pretty simple. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to pipe up. I'll try and clarify anything, any questions you have on this. Otherwise, I'll just move forward to our next chart over here. And we'll kind of look at some similar things, just on some different indicators. So actually on this chart, I'm going to kind of do like some mean reversion type of a signal. So what I'll do is I'm going to flip the signals opposite of what we've been doing on the first chart here. So just to kind of give some slightly different examples here. So let me shrink the ADX and we'll start with the RSI. But first, let me just kind of get through these comments here before I get started. So Julie's asking, why is there black in between when there should not be a signal difference? So let me bring the previous chart up here. Okay, so the reason why there's these black voided spots in between, I'll shrink my chart up here a little bit, is the reason why is because of our indicator stops detecting this high point here. So you can see that the SI swing high-low, we can see the blue line detected this little minor high point right here. So we got this little minor high pivot right here, and we can see it's detecting it, and then it stops. Right, you can see the thicker blue line, which is our whitest top, stops plotting, and so the solver doesn't have a plot to compare against anymore. And the reason why it stops plotting is because this high point, a new high point, has been detected, and so the plot jumps from there all the way up to here to our latest and greatest high point, high pivot. And so so we have to wait until the MACD indicator either breaks this new high point or comes down and breaks a new low point. So what happened was this new low point was created right there. Let me stretch this way up. So we had this new low point created as the MACD was coming down, and so then we had to wait until the MACD broke this new low point that was created right here. And so you get these black areas where there's no signal in between. So as I was showing you at the beginning of the workshop, you can adjust you know, the SI swing high-low indicator, you can adjust its settings to, yeah, you can adjust the settings to kind of fill this, to have this filled in a little bit more. So what you have to do is adjust the settings so that your widest top here extends forward a few more bars. It's only going to extend forward a few more bars, you know, because a new high point was made. So there's only, you know, only so much you can do. But if you really want to fill these voids in, then the best way to really do that is to use the toggle node. So you can use the toggle node to kind of fill these in. And well, yeah, let me show you real quick. So I'll just drop a toggle node down here, connect it up, and we have to go in here and adjust adjust all of our settings. So let's see, toggle. So on signal, I want to force that to on, and then the, hold on, let me adjust this. There we go. Now the on opposite signal, right, it's set to no action. We want to set that to force off. And we really don't have to worry about the reset because there's nothing plugged into the reset input right here. So we can just leave this alone, but being kind of a programmer and with, you know, somewhat of an engineering eye, I always like to make sure things are left in a clean state. So I set both of these to no action, but that's, realistically it's not necessary. And so now you can see we have a continuous signal going on. It's either long or short. All right, let me, let's see. Okay, Julie's got a couple more questions here. Okay, so let's kind of clarify what's being put in to this comparison solver. So Julie is asking, on the MACD comparison, was the first input A, was the first indicator A MACD? Yes. So in our indicator A section here, this is just the plain MACD. Stretch this out. This is just a regular MACD indicator. Nothing special. It's just the MACD. And we're using the MACD plots. And then indicator B, see, and the second, so this is Julie's question I'm reading here, and the second indicator B, MACD with nested SI swing. So close, Julie. So you kind of reversed it. It's actually the SI swing with the MACD nested into it. So we're taking the data or the plot values from the MACD and feeding it into the SI swing. So that way the SI swing is working on the plot values from the MACD. And so that's how we get the SI swings on the MACD there. And of course, make sure that your whatever indicator you're nesting into the other indicator, just make sure you have the correct plot set. You know, because if you want to analyze the average of the MACD, then you need to, you know, check those if you wanted to feed the average into the SI swing high-low. So Julie, so yes and yes on that question. Oh, so Julie's clarifying her previous question. She's saying, my question about the black difference was on the previous chart before you added the MACD. Yeah, so on this chart. So what I kind of explained about the black areas where there's no signal on the MACD, I mean, the same thing applies with price up here. So once again, as the SI swing indicator detects new high points and low points, right? You're going to get these areas in between, these black areas in between where there's no signal, and that's because once again we look here. So on this long signal, this section of long signal right here, we can see that the widest top plot, which is the thick blue plot, stopped. It stopped plotting, and so we can't compare price against it anymore because it stopped plotting down here and it moved up here. So now price is actually below the widest tops. So therefore there's no breakout to the long side anymore. So we had to wait until price moves along and finally breaks the widest bottoms here. So as these lines, as the widest plots of the SI swing indicator, as they continue to move around, that's going to create areas where there's no signal. Okay, so Hans, last question here, and I'll move on to the next chart. So Hans is asking, do you know what exactly the percent distance in the swing high-low indicator is? No, Hans, actually I don't know exactly because Jeremy and I didn't write this code. This code came from Dorshand, and so it's a part of one of his indicators posted up on Big Mike's. So he actually wrote the formula. So I don't know exactly how it is, but just from the name, it sounds like it's just measuring a percentage movement, in the input series. And the input series is, either price or an indicator. So, like I said, I believe the formula came from one of his price action swing indicators. So if you know coding a little bit, you could download he's got several price action swing indicators up on Big Mike, so you can download those and open up the code, and you can see what the exact formula is. Okay, so with that, let me move on to the next chart here. Okay, so I'm going to clear, come on, there we go. I'm going to clear the swing high-low indicator off of the chart so you guys can watch me add it on again. So, and on this chart, you can see I've got a different bar type here. These Renko bars do kind of, I think the reason why people like them is they define pretty clear, high and low points. So what I'm going to do is on this secondary chart here, I'm just going to open up. Let's see. I'm going to open up the template that I created here, and I don't see it on my short list, so I'm just going to use the open. Scroll down to it. There it is, 920. Open it up. All right. And I'll just work on the existing template that I've got going here. So just a quick tip here. If your mouse has a scroll wheel on it, the scroll wheel is what zooms you in and out. So you can see I can zoom in and out using my mouse wheel. And then if your mouse wheel is also a button, so some mice have a third mouse button, which is your mouse wheel, and if you press that down, that is the pan feature. So I'm pressing on my mouse wheel, which is the third mouse button, and that allows me to pan around. So just some kind of shortcuts. All right, so let me, oh, that's right. So there's nothing going on there, right? You'll see the signals are not updating on the chart, and that's because I just loaded up a template here. So I'll need to close it out, and you'll see I need to press F5 to update the chart real quick. And there we go. Now BloodHound's showing us the signals here correctly. So once again, right, this is just the same system looking for price breaking the previous high point, just using the Renko bars. All right, so next I'll work with the RSI here. Okay, I'll switch over to my Logic tab, and I'll drop a new comparison solver down. And let me rename it. So we want this to be the RSI to the swings. All right, so indicator A is going to be our RSI plot. So let's go find the RSI. There we go. And let's see, I just believe I'm using, the default setting, so 14 and 3, 14 and 3. And we're just going to use the RSI plot for this. So I have the average plot actually turned off on the chart here, so that's why you don't see it. And next, so for indicator B, and I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so let's save that for later, and let's put the SiSwingsHighLow on the RSI here. Let's go into indicators. Okay, there's the SiSwings. Drop it down, and so as I showed you before, I need to change my input series. So instead of the NQ instrument being fed into it, I want to feed the RSI indicator into it. There it is. And once again, I just want to make sure that my period values are correct, and I want to make sure I'm selecting the right plot, right? Because RSI has an average plot as well. So we're just using the regular RSI plot, so that's okay. And now we can see our input series says that RSI is being fed into it. And you can see that my SiSwingsHighLow indicator, what I did is I right-clicked and saved a default setting, so that way my plot settings are saved every time I use it. All right, let's hit apply. And what did I forget? I forgot to change the panel. So you can see this SiSwingsHighLow is on the price panel, and it's way down here at 0. So that's why price disappeared on us. So let's put this on the right panel. So we want it on panel 2. All right, so the price panel is panel 1, and the second panel down is panel 2, and down here the ADX is going to be on panel 3, and BloodHound is going to be on panel 4. There we go. Now that looks correct. All right. So we'll get back to BloodHound and setting up our solver. All right, so we already have indicator A set up as our RSI indicator. So next, indicator B, we want to take a look at the SI swing high-low, and we'll have to nest the RSI into it. All right, so we have that down here, and once again I want to analyze the widest tops and the widest bottoms for my signals. And then next I need to find the RSI, and I'm going to nest that in there. And I don't have to change my periods, I'm just using the default periods. And the RSI plot is already selected for us. So this is the plot data that's being fed into the SI swing indicator. All right, so I have my tops and bottoms selected. Hit OK. And now let's take a look at it. And there we go. So as soon as RSI breaks the previous low point here, so this is our previous low point, and we can see as soon as we break it, we're getting a short signal. Interesting. So on the Rankos, this doesn't look too bad. It's kind of interesting. Look, no signals fired off in this chop zone here, or in this chop zone. Interesting. Although in this larger or wider chop zone, our signals, they kind of look like they're coming in a little late. So we got a late signal there. We got a late signal there. Yeah, a couple of late signal here. This one wasn't too bad. So interesting. Okay, but what I wanted to show you, so that's kind of the standard use, right? But as I said earlier, on this chart, we're going to do like some mean reversion type signals. In other words, we're going to flip these signals here. All right, so to flip the signals, I need to go into indicator B. So I need to go into the SI swing high-low indicator, and I need to flip my switches here. So I'm going to look for a long signal when the RSI breaks its previous bottom, and I want a short signal when the RSI breaks its previous high swing or high pivot. And also what needs to be done is to reverse the outputs. So for now, I'm just going to turn all the outputs off. And let's just set this to 1. I believe that's all that's needed. There we go. Okay. So now we can see when the RSI breaks our previous low point, or breaks, essentially breaking the SI swing high-low plot, we're getting a long signal now instead. So next, let me turn the short signal on. So we'll put a 1 there, And so now we can see when the RSI breaks its previous high point over here, its previous high pivot, we're getting a short. And so this is kind of like the concept of a mean reversion system. In other words, trying to pick tops and bottoms and getting in a little early. And you know, it may work in some cases. So like right here, right, we went in long, literally 2 ticks before price bottomed out and reversed. Now here we got in pretty early. That didn't work out too good. You know, it worked out good, okay here, but you know, you could have scalped this. So this is kind of a way to use the SI swings for a mean reversion type of a breakout system. So once again, I had to reverse 2 things. So I had to reverse the plots for the SI swing. So for our SI swing high-low, I reversed the output. So we're using the bottoms, or in other words, the lowest pivot point. We want long signals, and the highest pivot points, or the widest tops, we want short signals. And then I had to reverse my output signals here. And so there's the short output and the long output. All right, so next we'll see how that works on the ADX. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoot the ADX up. I can shrink the RSI down. All right, so I need to add the SI swing indicator on here. And I need to feed the ADX into it, so I'll change the input series. There it is. And make sure my period is correct, a 14 period, that's correct. And the ADX only has 1 plot, so there's no plot selection down here. So we're good to go. And then I need to change the panel. So I moved the ADX up to panel 2. So I need to put it on panel 2. And let's hit apply, make sure it's working. Yep, that looks good. Okay. And so next I will build a new comparison solver here. All right, so let's add a new comparison solver down here. Connect it up, and just as I had done before, just need to change my indicators here. So I'm going through this one kind of quickly because I want to try and wrap this up in the next 10 minutes. So, all right, switched over to the ADX. The period's good. There's only 1 plot. Don't have to worry about that. And then next, as you probably already guessed, we need to switch this over to the SI swing high-low. There we go. And now we need to find the ADX and nest it into it. So there's the ADX nested in there. Okay, so for the ADX, right, only 1 plot, so we're good to go. Our period's okay. And once again, I'm going to build this as I'm going to flip the signals on this one as well to kind of build it like a mean reversion system. So for the bottoms, so when we break the low pivots, I want a long signal, and when we break the high pivots, I want a short signal. So I'm going to reverse those, and let's clear my output out. Oops. Okay. So I'll reverse the longs. There we go. And reverse the shorts like that. And let's see. That looks like it really sucks. I gotta say that those do not look good at all, huh? All right, let's put those back to normal. See if that works a little better. At first glance, that does not look very useful. So let me just reverse everything again. So I reversed my outputs, and you can see, what we're getting is a bunch of garbage. So let's also reverse the indicator B. Yeah, right. So we're going to reverse the SI swing plots here. Reverse these. Now let's take a look. So looks a little better, but just keep in mind the ADX really isn't suited for doing something like this. This is just an example because the ADX is trying to determine trend. So as we're going in, so as a long trend here is kind of being determined, basically when price broke the previous low, it's kind of like setting up for a breakout to the low side, and so the ADX is trying to detect this as a trend. So the ADX is rising, saying that, hey, we're in a short trend. Or basically, the ADX is just saying we're in a trend, and so the ADX is going to start rising whenever a trend is determined. So the ADX isn't perfectly suited for, I guess, this type of analysis, but it can be done, and so you can see that some of these long signals work out good as a mean reversion, right, because it's picking some of these bottoms here, and it picked that bottom there, picked that bottom right there, it picked that bottom there, and then finally we get in a strong enough long trend where it fails. So interesting, although it did seem to pick a pretty good long trend. I think that's just coincidence. All right, so with that, that's essentially it in a nutshell. Let's see. Oh, let's see. Yeah, one thing I kind of noticed last night, at least on the price data I had last night, one thing I thought was kind of interesting was, right, the RSI has this 25 plot, or this 25 line right here. And just a second, guys. There's something under my mouse that's making a bunch of noise. There. All right, so you can see this thin red line. So that's a 25 threshold value, and essentially what that is there for is I think the ADX is commonly used that essentially you need the ADX to be above this 25 threshold to really tell you that you're really in a real trend, that a significant trend has been kind of created when we're above this 25 value. And so you can see here in the ADX we're above 25, and you could kind of argue that, hey, we kind of really did finally get into a long trend, even though it didn't last very long. And then same here for this long trend up. The ADX is essentially above the 25 right here on this bar. So as soon as price breaks its previous pivot, the ADX also broke this 25 threshold to kind of tell us we're in a long trend. So I thought it'd be interesting to just kind of include some extra logic. So I will throw a threshold solver on here, And so that way we'll eliminate all the signals when the ADX is below this 25 threshold. And we'll just look at signals when the ADX is above this 25 threshold. So let's connect the threshold up. And let me give this a name. Switch my indicator over to the ADX. And let's see, 25 is the value I'm looking for. And I put 25 in here twice because I want a digital output. So let me show you what I mean here. So if I take threshold B and set it back to 0, right, you see how BloodHound's output, it kind of has this analog kind of feel to it. Right, so the closer the ADX gets to 25, the greater the long output gets. And essentially I just wanted to kind of eliminate this this analog kind of look. So what I can do is set this threshold B, or the second one, down to 25 as well. And so now, if you look at my outputs, when I'm at 0, there's no output, right? All these three down here, they all say at 0, but my output is 0 when it's at 0. And then also right here, on this one, it says at 25, my output is at 0 as well. So that's what creates this digital type of output. So whenever the ADX is between 0 and 25, my output is going to be 0. And as soon as it gets to 25 or greater, then I get a long output of 1. So that's how that digital type of an output works. And essentially, see, I want to get a short output as well. I might, I don't really anticipate getting any kind of short outputs from the ADX here when it's above 25, but you never know. So I'm using the threshold as a permissive for longs and short signals. And so next, I just need to join those two solvers together with an AND node. Right, so this right here is just the ADX, in the comparison solver. And now if we add our threshold filter, all right, so now let's kind of see how some of these look. Well, that one doesn't look very promising, does it? Well, that's an interesting long reversal signal. Well, that was a pretty poor short signal there, but this one here looked like a decent short signal. And once again, that's reversed too soon. That long signal, I'd say, worked out pretty good. It got in kind of earlier than we would like, but it did get us in for a good long run. Let's see. Yeah, that short signal didn't work out, did it? But this long signal, yeah, got us in earlier than we'd like, but still ended up being good. And that short signal didn't work too good. So, well, take it for what it is. But primarily, what I'm kind of showing you is, hey, you got some kind of idea, I just want to show you how quickly I was able to test out that theory, or test out this idea that I had. I was able to do it in front of you guys in just a matter of minutes. I could have done it in a matter of seconds if I didn't have to explain it to you. So I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but this is more for anybody that watches the video afterwards. That's kind of the beauty of the reason why we came up with BloodHound, so you can test out your ideas in a matter of seconds and minutes. So, all right, with that, let me try and get back to some questions here that I said I'd hold off towards the end. Okay, so Adam wanted me to cover the plot outputs again of the SI swing indicator. So let's close up BloodHound. So let me go into my indicator list. And if we pick an SI swing, there we go. Okay, so Adam, the widest, you see we have two tightest plots. It says tightest up here, tightest tops and tightest bottoms, and then we have widest plots. So we have widest bottoms and widest tops. Okay, the widest plots, the reason why they're called the widest is because they're picking the lowest low and the highest high pivot points. So you see how the thicker, brighter magenta line is picking the lowest low, and it's also showing us the highest highs up here. So these plots are the widest plots. They're always the widest from each other. Now you see these internal plots, all right, this thinner, darker magenta line, and we also have a, let's see, let me look, well, you can see right over here we have a thinner, slightly darker blue plot. So these are the tightest, the two tightest plots, right? And they're called tightest because they're closer together. They're tighter together, whereas the widest plots are wider from each other. They're the widest separation. And the inner ones, the tighter ones, so what they're detecting are like the internal swing points. So, you know, between this lowest pivot and this highest pivot, sometimes you'll get intermediary pivots, you know, little micro pivots in the middle as prices, you know, moving up. And so, like for example, right here, actually let me close this out. So right here is our highest plot. Oops, bad example. I meant to put that over here. There we go. And then here we have like a little intermediary high point. So we have a high point here, but it's not as high as the previous high. So you can see it was marked by the tightest top. Let me stretch this out, make it a little more easier to see. So we can see this lower high pivot was picked up by the tightest tops, and the widest tops still held on to this one back here because it was higher. So that's what the difference is between the tightest plots and the widest plots. So Robert wants to know how to change the default settings for your indicators. All right, so what I did is once I had all my plots set up the way I like them, what you do is just right-click anywhere in the parameters field, anywhere in this panel. Right-click anywhere. You can see you have set default for the swings, highs, lows. So what that does is it sets your default parameters, your default settings here for the indicator. So for the ADX, if I change this to a 20 period, then I could right-click and set a default, and whenever I load the ADX on my chart, it'll load it up with the 20 period, and it'll also remember the color of the plot. So what I did is, I had all my plots set the way I liked, and I just right-clicked and set a default. So just a word of caution, I would recommend that you never do this for BloodHound because we're always updating BloodHound. And so if you load up an updated indicator that has a default, where you created a default setting for this indicator, what happens is if we push out an update to BloodHound and we kind of modify any of these parameters, NinjaTrader doesn't know how to handle that change in these parameters, because this default file, so a file's created that remembers all of these settings, and so the file is going to have the old parameter settings, and if we update BloodHound, it might have an extra parameter in it, and BloodHound and NinjaTrader is going to look at the file that was created with the old BloodHound settings, and it's not going to know what to do if we add a new parameter in here. Say we add a new parameter under settings. NinjaTrader doesn't know how to handle that, and it gives you an annoying error message. So I recommend that you don't do it for BloodHound. We probably will not. I don't see any need to update. Actually, no, we will be updating the SI swings. It is on our list to do. Actually, is it the swings or? Actually, no, I don't think it's the swings, highs, lows. I think we're going to update this SI swings to include Fibonacci's. So just keep in mind, if you do set some default, if I add this on, if you do set some defaults and you update BloodHound and you start getting these annoying serialization errors, it's because you have this set default file created. So anyways, if that happens, just send us an email and we'll send you instructions on how to fix that. Okay, let's see. Looks like Julie's got a question here. So Julie's asking, will you post this to the website so we can create these indicators? Yes. Yeah. I'll get this workshop posted up hopefully this weekend. Okay. And Ken is asking, Zach, can the full stochastic indicator be calced on high or low in SI, or does the basic code of NT indicator have to be changed, or can it be changed? So let me read that again here, Ken. Can the full stochastic indicator be calced on high or low? So I guess, Ken, to keep in the same thing what I've been showing you guys, if you're asking, you can apply this SI swing high-low indicator on top of any other indicator. Now, I didn't show the stochastic, but you could definitely put this indicator on the stochastic and do the same type of analysis. For example, basically the stochastic is an oscillator just much like the RSI, right? It's kind of range bound between 0 and 100. So you could put the SI swing high-low on your stochastic if that's what you're asking. You don't need to modify any code. So can I suggest just play around with it and give it a shot? And all right, last question here. Robert is asking, is there a way to change the color of the vertical signal lines from red and green to other colors? Oh yes, of course. BloodHound is, as fancy as it looks, BloodHound is an indicator, and it's bound by all the rules that NinjaTrader's framework has given to indicators. And so this signal, right, the signal output here, it's just a plot. It's a plot using the bar type. So as you can see, I have BloodHound selected here, and if I look in the plots section, there's all those plots. And they're just standard indicator plots. And we can see here the long confidence, right, which is your long signal output. It's just set to a bar type, a bar plot style. You know, I could change that style to whatever I want. You know, I could make it dots if I wanted to. Hit apply, and bingo. You know, we can see it's plots over here, dots. Now, of course, the dots don't work out too good because when the long output has a value of 0, you know, I'm getting all these dots along the 0 line. So it's not as clean looking as the bar style, but, and of course you can see I can change the color. So let's move this to, let's see, dark turquoise, or there we go, deep sky blue. And I should probably put it back on bar style. And there we go. Now I got a blue shaded background when I get long signals. So there you go. Okay. All right. So that, I think, takes care of Robert's question. Okay. Great, guys. Well, that's going to wrap this up. So you guys have a good weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.